So yeah, CC6, if you look at it, CC6 will say it's called listens actively. So even before we get into the competencies, I just want to check in terms of what does listening represent for you? Yeah, feel free to unmute and raise your hand, unmute, share. Being present, okay. Anyone else to add to that?
What does listening mean?
Mm-hmm.
Hearing with an intention to understand.
Mm-hmm. All right, listening with an intention to understand, okay. And I want to just put that question there. What's the difference between hearing and listening?
Hearing is mostly what you can say. It's like we just hear it without any conclusion, but listening
Mm,
is more of interpreting what actually the person is wanting to tell, considering other aspects of the conversation.
all right.
Listening is
So,
a deep, like
mm-hmm. Look, I think I lost you.
From my perspective,
Please, yeah,
hearing
it will go ahead.
I think hearing is when you can actually hear the words, like the tone, like you would like you would hear music or hear some sound. But listening
Mm-hmm.
is when you're paying attention to the words the person is saying and to the emotion that kind of comes out from those words, maybe anger or um things like that.
Fantastic. Thanks, Itil. Thanks, Itil. Thanks, Rupa. Thanks, Savita. Thanks, everybody else. I think Jitendra also put global listening. It's an interesting term. If I had to answer, is there a global listening? Is there a national listening? Is there district listening? City listening? I'm just pulling a leg, but then can we think on those angles? Because I'm just not getting into core competencies. What is CC 6.1, 6.2? Even before that, what's listening for us? And Itil interestingly brought out music, right? So, do we listen to lyrics or we just listen to the song? Most of our active understanding is in terms of uh, the words that we are able to capture that the brain looks at. So, we do hear, for example, if you're going in traffic, you are hearing hundreds of noise or voice samples that are coming in. But then you are also listening to somebody on the phone, you're tuning into that part of that. So even sitting in a metro, you're able to hold a conversation with somebody miles apart because you're connected on the phone. And you're able to listen to what they're saying and respond to that meaningfully to that. So listening also is interestingly is attuning towards something. So you're giving more attention towards certain aspects of it, and at times also ignoring certain other things. Now, if I suddenly start to talk in Kannada, I'm pretty sure 99% of people here in this conversation may not understand what I'm talking. But you're still listening, you're still hearing. So whatever is delivering onto your ears, and whatever is getting filtered and getting processed and making sense. So that will be the process. So there's the aspect of whatever is sound signals entering your ear, noise getting filtered out, these patterns getting recognized in your brain, boom form meaning, the meaning making, then making sense, and then being responded. So do you do this consciously now as individuals? No, we don't. We're always either hearing quite a lot of things, listening to what is selectively required for us, and then proceeding with whatever we're going to do. And the same it goes with music. Sometimes there are places where I don't understand the lyrics, but I understand the background. So, but the song is both the lyrics as well as the background music, sounds, etc. Why is that important for us to make that distinction, and how is it relevant to coaching? Because you're not listening to what the client is saying, which is fantastic that you do. It's a almost a bare minimum requirement. You're also listening to what the client is not saying. And the question is, how do you know that the client is not saying something? And that's the equation around the nonverbal cues that will come. So if I am sitting like this and saying, "Oh, I am really excited," right? So the word that you're listening to is excited, but your brain's not making sense, saying Sunil is not sounding exciting or is not sounding excited. That is your tuning into active aspects. So ICF, I think, from my understanding, there was a space, there's a timeline when there were 11 core competencies, another 8 core competencies. So basically, all 11 are already represented in the 8. So one of the things that they made was active listening and listens actively. Yeah, so active listening and listens actively. What is the difference in those two outputs and those two representations? A huge difference in how that is there. But then it's very important to make that distinction in terms of active listening and listening actively. Yeah. So yes, Jitendra, go ahead.
So maybe active listening is going beyond the words,
Mm-hmm.
and not only the words, but then when I mentioned that it was a global listening, maybe the body gestures, the stress on certain word, the modulation in their voice. There are so many other things, right, which have to be noticed in that discussion. And when those discussions are happening, and then when you are active in that discussion, what I have experienced in those situations is saying that there is something more which comes at that very moment in the discussion, which the coachee also doesn't know. As a coach, I also don't know. But then something happens in that situation. Maybe people call it intuition, or maybe they call it something else, and that takes birth in that moment. So that's why active listening is much more about than the words. But then listen actively to me is saying that whatever the words are coming, I'm listening to those very particularly. Yeah, that's what my views are.
Fantastic. Yeah, thank you. I think so. One is when I'm saying, oh, listen actively, right? So then my question is there a listen passively, listen neutrally, listen something else as well? So what makes the active part of it? So some conversations, it like even before coaching, if you look at it, there were conversations around that place in terms of um eye contact, right? So look towards the person. So I am talking to you, and if you're looking like this, that's not like my antenna is not pick. Even though the sound is coming, I'm not giving that. So kind of that aspect is like you listen first, but then you do it actively. So there's a activity to be done. There's a energy to be spent that I am consciously trying to be doing something. So the focus is on doing. But rather, when I'm saying active listening, it's the other way around. So active listening is when I'm saying, yes, I'm doing active and then I'm doing listening. And when I'm saying listens actively, the listening is coming first and then actively goes later. Able to make sense? With that. And because Jitendra, you said something, I'm tempted to think, share something that I just saw yesterday. Is it? This is, oh, damn. Yeah. It's also, I just shared it in the group. It's an Instagram video. Let me see if that'll play. So, okay, wait.
Saying she stole my money. I didn't
Mm.
say she stole my money. I didn't say she stole my money. I didn't say she stole my money. I didn't say she stole my money.
Are
I
you able to
didn't say
listen?
she stole my money.
At least for me, the voice is coming in a breaking manner. I'm not being able to listen to it very clearly.
Yeah, hopefully now this will get better. I'm restarting it. So, yeah, you're able to see the sentence. I didn't say she stole my money.
Yes.
Right? That's the sentence, and this is how it starts.
I didn't say she stole my money. 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 Intonation is meaning.
Yeah. So I've also shared it on the WhatsApp group. So you can have a look at it. But then I just wanted to bring it to your notice in terms of the linguistics, the pause, the space. So here you are looking at it from active listening. So I'm now focusing myself there, saying, hey, I have to listen to it actively. I have to spend more time, spend more work. So there is an aspect of doing. But then there is also an aspect of being there that is important for us from a coaching POV or coaching lens. Who are we being as coaches? We're not doing things. Listening is happening as a matter of uh, not even mindset. It's becoming ingrained that we're listening to what is being shared. And here it was very clear that somebody is stressing on certain words, certain spaces. But none of your client is going to be enunciating English, right? So they're going to speak in a space format. So how are you able to listen to what they're sharing and what also they're not sharing? And how much do you think they're already sharing? What is the right pause that you're asking? What questions that you need to ask? And as much as it is, what questions do you not need to not ask? Other aspects, are you listening to yourself as a coach? Are you listening to yourself as a person? And are you listening to the cross chatter that is coming because of what the client is sharing? And also, are you listening to the cross chatter that's happened because you just fought with your friend, husband, wife, brother, sister, whatever, getting into the session? So, who are you listening to? What are you not listening? And what you're listening to. So all of these are reflective questions dots along the way for us to look at not just core competencies at what ICF is putting, those six sub-core competencies that are part of it. Then if you were to just sit and ask ourselves, saying in a coaching session, who am I listening to? Is it the judge to say, ask the right questions? Is it the need for the conversation to say, don't miss any metaphors? Is this you are listening to your own critical self to say, I think last session was bad, I need to do this better? Are you listening to yourself talking about, I think that question that I asked is a bad question, so should I do that? Are you also listening to say the client talking about relationship issue which you also went through similar? So is there a cross chatter that you're listening to? Are you listening to your coach saying, this is, or your coach trainer saying, oh, after CC2, you need to ask CC3, are you under that pressure? Is there a parallel conversation going in your head? Or is there no conversation going in your head? And are you tuned in so beautifully to what's happening on the other side of the conversation? And again, are you distracted by what's happening in your background? Are you distracted by what's happening in the client's background? Are you possibly distracted by how the client has come to the session? So all of these are aspects that really matter in terms of what we are listening to. And question mark is again deeper reflections. Do we listen differently when I hold the role of a coach? Because I met somebody today who said, "I'm not a coach unless I'm coaching." Uh, are you listening irrespective of whether you hold the role of a coach? Are you listening irrespective of the role of a client? Are you listening irrespective when you have roles and have not roles that you're working with? I am for sure that my mother will agree that I'm a bad listener, but I can be an excellent listener when I'm a coach, when I'm here switching on the coaching space. And the joke's on me when it comes to that, because she would have gone for 3 hours sharing something, and I only listened to 2 lines there. Right. So there's also the other thing which I don't know who shared that. If you have the data, please share. The client shares too much, and then what do we listen to? That aspect of I think Stephanie, we talked today in our sessions. What if the client is sharing too much? So I think ETL said we need to listen to the feelings of the client. So the client will share two things. One is the fact, and the second is feelings, and possibly the third is fiction. Right. So what they assume to be happening could be the barriers, what they feel is happening, and what they know is happening. So there is knowledge for sure in terms of saying, hey, I think this is why it's happening. There is an assumption saying it may be happening because of like that. And I feel because this is happening, I feel XYZ. So there are, again, you're listening to that. And I'll just give you an example or a sidetrack in this saying, when you're asking a question, uh, do let me know if these are three separate questions. As you are sharing this, saying that your life is a series of escapes, what do you feel? That's one question. As you're listening to me share that your life is a series of mishaps, what does it sound like? As you are sharing that your life is a series of unfortunate incidents, what does it look like? What does it sound like? Sorry. So does these three look three different questions?
Oh, definitely.
Yes. Sri, what makes it? I know yes for sure. So it's a closed-ended question, but what's the open-ended question?
So so I'll be able to identify with the visual part of it. Maybe not as much as sounding part. So
Fantastic.
by our conversation, we should be able to gauge as to what sort of person the client is, and we can frame our question. It's easier said than done, I know, but I think that's what we are looking at.
Okay, I'll do a quiz. Sri is perfectly on the dot. How many of you noticed that I said three different first statements?
Three different.
All of you first statements, as I heard you say, there's a series of. After the series of, all three were different sharings. The first one was a series of some stuff. The second was series of mishaps. The series of miss something else. Like so, you were listening in because you're tuned in to say, hey, the sound, the look, and the feel. But the three are distinctly separate sentences. So three different metaphors that came by. But the tuning in was only to say the feel, the sound, the look, because you're anticipating that as a coach. And you're tuning in only to that. And the tuning in could be you're only tuning in because it could be a bias that you already have. You're tuning in because you have a certain understanding or an assumption that somebody is like that, right? So possibly you're working again. This is where possible cultural competencies could be. Right? So what I assume to be somebody's distress signal is possibly somebody's something else. So again, it's a listening aspect, and which is one of the other important aspects when somebody says, I am thinking that you are feeling frustrated. My frustrated could be not your frustrated. My frustrated could be you're angry. Your anger could be my rage. My rage could be your meltdown. Your meltdown could be like everyday assumptions for me. So we do not interpret what we're listening to. So we are only sensing what we're listening. So this is I don't know if I want, like, this is overwhelming to get so many these question marks at these points of time. And when I ask this question, I'm also listening to the unsaid because none of you said that, but I'm sensing there could be, right? So it is also to ability to sense what is happening on the other side. So when to pause, how much to pause, is as much active listening and listens actively to that. So who are you tuning into, and are you zoned out of the rest of the world, and you're there listening? And I think for a lot of you who listen to radio, uh, radio is a different ballgame because whatever is visually happening, you're able to listen to that completely there. So you're able to see what's happening in a cricket match thousands of miles away, or you hear what's happening in a cricket match, and then you're able to project it in your own mind, saying, "Hey, this is what is happening." Yeah, like okay, such Sunil Gavaskar hit a cover drive right through the boundary. It swung late, right? So you're able to make an imagery in your own head, and that's how you make meaning of what you're hearing. It's a very natural thing. So your listening is also creating imageries in your own head, which at times you need to listen to, and sometimes you need to compartmentalize. So here I pause before we actually get to sit with the document that has been shared from the ICF. Um, are we on the right track? Are there questions? Are there observations? Are there feelings? Are there anecdotes that you like share?
Just one question, Sunil.
Mhm.
Do we ever get to listen blank?
Mhm. Ever is a good question. So ideally, if you're looking at, yes, there is a possibility that you can listen blank. But then, is it saying, okay, can we do Zen mode? Because I'm very conscious. Bias is a Buddhist, right? So she will tell us that not all of us can go into Zen mode right away. So it's practice. Not everything is perfect. Can it happen? Yes, it can happen. But again, it's interference segment. So the interference is getting reduced. So the interference part is getting reduced as you go deeper and deeper into the craft of listening. And the assumption is that as coaches, we are actively listening. The understanding should be that as people, we're always listening. Like sometimes, in a metro, you make eye contact and you'll know that person is tired and you'll give you a seat to them. And they will look at you and be like, they've seen you equally tired and they don't make that choice. So no words are exchanged. And then there's communication that's happening. So are you listening to all those things that you're getting as input signals? So the interference there could be very less, very minimal, because you're able to understand what the other person is trying to understand or trying to share. But here we're not trying to understand as coaches. So we'll have to switch off that part of the understanding. We'll have to go to the sense bit of it, which is again coming around linguistics, non-linguistics, non-verbal, verbal. Sometimes the client shares that, I think I'm feeling left out. So on verbal data, yes, client is feeling left out. On feeling data, the feeling says, yeah, I'm disappointed. But do we as coaches listen to the opportunity of a coach, say, in the next question there? Or are we listening to the opportunity for silence? And is that opportunity coming from saying, ask a question, otherwise you're a dumb coach? Or don't ask a question because that's the need for coaching right now. So you're listening at multiple dimensions as such. Hmm. Yeah. Yes, Pyle, I was sensing that you will come with a question. Go ahead.
No, actually, I don't have a question right now, Sunil, but this is quite interesting. And your first question rather, I hope I was listening actively. The subtle demarcation between active listening and listening actively, right? So what I'm seeing is active listening is when we say active listening, it's more like a skill, right? Whether you have the skill of being an active listener. And listening actively is more like a verb. It's, as you said, it's the doing, it's the act or the behavior.
Okay.
So I'm seeing that the competency is urging us to make it a part of who we are, right? As you said, it's not just about being in the coaching session, but being of the coach. So whether I aspire is a person who listens actively. So that's how I'm seeing it. I like the way you defined tuning. That was new to me. But I've always understood this competency as uh, doing that part or being that, with complete intention and attention. So for me, these two words have always been the definition for listening actively, with attention and intention. So that's what I wanted to share. That this is how, and I think you're also beautifully defining different contexts. This has also been quite an eye opener for me when you say, "Who am I listening to?" Or "What am I listening to?" So I think, can I move away from the biases, the judgments, the barriers, the noise in the metaphorical sense, and at the same time, this listening is, as Jitinder also said, global listening. I see it as holistic listening, contextual listening, reflective listening, curious listening, emotional listening. There's so much to it. Sometimes it feels like non-doable as humans because we've been conditioned. We've been conditioned such, right? I mean, we're only listening. There's so many filters that we have. So that's why this is very transformative. So I just, yeah, I felt like I should share. And I missed Sri Raman's question. Were you saying that listening to the blank? Did I hear it correctly? Mr. Sri Raman.
Yeah, listening to the client because he asked about the visual sound part and all. So I say,
Like when you say
is
blank,
it
yeah, sorry.
how do you determine that whether you ask a question about feeling or sounding?
All right. Okay, so you're saying so minus the feeling, the minus the sound, minus the seeing. That blank?
No, as coaches, I mean, we should be able to gauge whether the person is a visual man or
All right.
an oral man, oral person, not, so pardon my gender bender. When I say person, man, I mean person.
I understand. I understand. Auditory or kinesthetic or visual. Yeah.
Interesting. So
I hope
can
I
I
got
go
that.
ahead? Yes, yes, yes. So can I go ahead and share what's coming up? Right. So
Yes, please. Sorry. Yes, I'm sorry if I
no.
took your
This is a
time.
place for all of us to share. Right. So that's the best part of that. Uh, Attention, intention, tuning in. Right. So if we go a little deeper into that, these are all definitions we've given ourselves. So how do we really know that what is our intention? So when we say intentional listening, are we tuning in to say, oh, I will only listen with that intention? And am I listening in without intention? So how do we say neutral while staying intentional? Am I intentional towards my ego as a coach? My space as say I'm a PCC, an MCC, I'm an ASC, I'm XYZ number of years experience, I'm an executive coach. And then that's the listening to who you are as a person. So are you listening to that chatter? And I love that aspect, saying curious listening, emotional listening, global listening. So these are all sub bifurcations that we've asked. So can you look at this with a baby's mindset or a mindset of a young kid who's learning and absorbing everything and not putting anything into brackets. And that's the kind of listening that you're looking for. And see, that's the answer to blank listening. At least as in how much we understand or what a kid listens to or how they feel it. They don't have too much of biases except for this. That's safe for me, that's not safe for me. That's the minimum bifurcation.
Right.
So, but otherwise they're listening to it with like nothing in their head that says, yeah, it should be like this, that person is this person, nothing like that. The cognition is not switched on to say yes. Except maybe this is my mom, this is not my mom. So basic intuition or arrival comes with that intelligence.
Right. Right. Right.
So
I agree with you. Yeah.
those are listening. And do you also pause at some places where the client is trying to draw back? Do you also see them, sort of move in, move out? How do you sense? Is your sense tuned in your listening? Because the listening part to the unsaid is more of the sixth sense, seventh sense, whatever sense that you call it. Saying, I think at this point of time, there's something that's there that's different. And you observe the client from session to session as well. So listening is not only now, today, you also have you listened before, right? So those are also spaces where you're listening. And if you're doing listening, right now you're stage one of listening. If you're being a listener, then you move that space. And then something that many coaches come back to me and say, "Hey, do we take notes?" Right? That's a thing saying, "I'm under pressure to take notes. I need to be present." So, how do we know that we are absent? Is a question that I ask when somebody asks me, "I'm present." Same thing. How do you know that you're not listening? You say, "Yes, I'm listening." So, how do we know that we're really listening? Is there no noise outside? Are we listening to ourselves? How do we know? So some interventions are like the chatter in your head, like the feelings in your body. Uh, all that is an indication saying as a parallel thought process, a parallel train track running. So all of these from a metaphorical sense give us an understanding that yes, this is it, right? So now automatically as soon as Leila switched on video, I'm like, I think she has something to share. So that's you don't have to tell me anything, right? So
Yes.
that sense, Leila, I want to.
Thank you, Sunil. I have a practical example. So, for active listening, I was with a coachee, and I'm very actively listening him. He is a father of a 14 years boy, and he is telling so many things, and sometimes negative things, how to fix his son. So I'm listening actively, but after 2-3 sentences, he is looking towards me. So after 20 minutes active listening, I thought that last 20 minutes, what I have listened to him, I repeat that one, and repeatedly asking after 1 or 2 minutes that the things I have heard, is it right? Or you have said that is the right one. So to share the things with you with a purpose that main presence is number one, and the body language, the movement, the face making, the tone, and the curiosity look. So for listening actively, we could have to have that patience and intention or intuition or whatever word we use. We have to uh, uh, have all words together, so to make the listening actively. So
Yes.
this is my practical example. I shared the person I faced, and he is he was a bit passionless. So frequently his body language, his tone, his behavior changing, and continuous movement was there. So he was very worried about his son. So I marked that so many changes within half an hour, and I note all because it was one to one, so there was no opportunity to record it so that I can hear again and again, I can listen again. So there was not that opportunity. So I recollect, I uh, memorized that what happened. And after second session, when I told him, was that okay? The way you were talking, and I listened. Then he agreed, and then it was easy to coach him. So I thought that presence is fast to listen actively. So that is the things what I have wanted to say. Thank you all.
Thank you for sharing that. And I think because you brought that up in terms of body language, tone, intensity, sharing, one session to the other, and all of it coming together. So it may feel like overwhelming for us, especially as young coaches, to say, yes, I'm listening actively. Am I doing it right? So it's up from possibly somebody who's done more hours, put in more hours into this. It'll get a little more easier, it'll get a little more natural, it'll get a lot more easier to be there and understand. So, and do so without judging the other person in terms of what they're sharing. So it is a statement. So you're listening for judgment. And somewhere along the line, when Pyle said this space of this thing, I also thought of adding corrective listening. So you're listening to correct somebody. So there's feeling listening, there's corrective listening. So you're trying to look at a role and say, I will listen based on that role. So the aspect is we listen irrespective of the roles that we have, and that's when you know you've arrived in terms of listening.
Yeah, also this brings some experience and some ideas also to my mind, what Leila was sharing. So I think that sometimes when I am with people who didn't experience ever coaching, especially young people who really need to say something and they don't have the experience that somebody listens to them. I coached someone like that not long ago, and I heard the person tell me, I think never anybody listened to me like that. So what I wanted to say is just sometimes people are so hungry of listening and just really venting and bringing just words out that I feel the best thing to do in the moment is just listening and not saying a lot, so that people can really have this experience and grow into opening up more. And because it's not natural to have someone in front of you who really will deeply listen or will listen actively.
Absolutely. And I think the competency of the world for the next how many ever number of years is going to be the aspect of listening. And then, so a lot of coaches, a lot of people are getting to AI based coaches purely because they feel like they are not heard. Right. And that aspect of who they are. So the difference between, or the transition is, you are somebody who's hearing things and hearing from this year, letting go from this year. Then you're tuning in more actively to listen to their feeling, their words, their expressions. Then it also becomes so much that you're now, from a coach's POV, you're listening for the unsaid as much as you're talking about the said. So again, do you want to listen to your, all those things that you have as questions versus the question that arrives to you as and when the coaching requires? So there are more nuances. Yes, I have not even got to that aspect to what ICF is given officially in the document, right? We'll just get to that because that'll be a complete version of today. Where are we with that? Yeah, that, just give me a minute. Yeah. Share the screen. Then you should be able to see this. Yeah. So ICF's conversation is that listens actively. Like some of you said that it's listening first and then we're going active, not active listening. So you listen first. Again, it comes with a verb in the beginning, and then you have that aspect of the active part coming in later. It's actively and not active. So it's uh, not an instruction. Oh, actively listen. Right. So it's not like that. It's not instructional. It is more of an aspect that you embody. So you're focusing on what the client is and is not saying to fully understand what is being communicated in the context of the client systems and to support client expression. Now, interesting point is the aspect of what is and is not saying. Fully understand what is being communicated in the context of the client systems and to support their self-expression. So here, some of the self-expression segment will be metaphors, similes, working with emotions, working with their values, working their expressions, which is where the client's context, identity, environment, experiences, values, beliefs, understanding what the client is communicating. And to do it in such a way that your filters and your lenses are not affecting the session in any way. I think that's also a very important aspect to consider. And it says we support the client expression and we understand what is being communicated. A little bit of that to fully understand. We don't understand for our sakes. We sense it and share it so that the client's understanding of their own self gets deeper. So that's the activity that happens after listening actively. So that's the expression there. So client's context, for example, the way I experience happiness would be very different from, say, how Stephanie experiences, how Freeman experiences. And there could be in a conversation in terms of, say, even Laila experiencing the same. And say, two people in the same family, same stimuli experience it differently. So we are allowing ourselves to remain open to that aspect of saying everybody has their own way of expressing, being present to what is being shared. So that is also coming to understand the client also has lenses, also has layers, also has different environment conversation that have enabled them. They also are malleable, ductile, tensile in their own ways. So they have also been programmed in different ways. So you're not judging them for their programming. You are aware that there are contexts, there is identity, there's environment, there's experience, there's values, there's beliefs, there's emotion, there's storytelling, there's feelings, there's sensations, there's thoughts, there's ideas. Yeah, there's self-limiting beliefs, self-enabling beliefs, you name it, are all part of the conversation here. And you are considering and considerate and empathetic to that particular aspect. You're not compassionate, but you're empathetic. You are EM away from being a pathetic listener, but I hope you can be an empathetic listener. Right? So that deal is there. So, and again, in terms of this, which is 6002, is generally coming in from the aspect of paraphrasing, reflects, or summarize what the client is communicating to ensure clarity and understanding. So, yeah, I heard you share that you are looking for a job and you're frustrated with that. What do you think of that? So, that listening to those words in between the sharing and putting it back so that you are not running from an assumption space. And you're also seeing what is important for the client. You're also observing what's important for the client. You're also feeling that you're also looking for that there. And again, you don't do it. Again, here you are here as a coach, you're not actively trying to influence the listening, but you're listening actively. So you're saying, oh, is that what you mean? So that would be still active listening, but then you're trying to actively influence after the fact. So, and third one is you recognize and inquire when there is more to what the client is communicating, which is typically your metaphors. So I heard you say your life is a series of unfortunate events. What does it mean for you? What comes to your mind when you share that? What are you processing when you share that? What do you feel when you share that? What makes you stick to that belief when you share that? So it could be different questions based on different context. And also your questions are based on again context. You don't right away bring up and say, hey, today you're wearing brown, what does it brown signify for you? So it could be not a question that's just because you have a powerful question, you don't ask a powerful question. And you recognize what the right time to ask a question is and what's the right time to not ask the question. And that's on-field intelligence as a coach to say, yeah, I think at this point I'll not ask that question. And the easiest part, 6.04, is notices and acknowledges and explores the client's emotion, energy shifts, verbal, non-verbal, and other behaviors. I forgot this. My coach training in the first day of the conversation said, what's the difference between habit and behavior? And the question stayed with me, the answer didn't though. Uh, so habit to behavior, I think if habit, behavior, pattern. So there is a difference. Pattern is observable, behavior is seen across a particular stimuli, pattern maybe beyond stimuli. So again, habit could be something that is acquired as a learning or acquired without being conscious of it. Patterns are again conscious patterns and conscious patterns, conscious behaviors and conscious behaviors. Verbal cues, non-verbal cues, emotions. Sometimes the client just, like pulls her hair, looks at it, and suddenly. And also, you notice the client suddenly getting more uh, active with their hand movement. So these are all small, easy aspects to catch. And you notice that, and you also acknowledge. You bring it to their notice and attention. So listening actively here also just does not mean that we listen and we let go. We also bring back a conversation around that. We ask the next question. And every question that you ask is powerful. There's no powerful questions. Every question for the client is powerful. And interestingly, you integrate the client's words, tone of voice, and body language to determine the full meaning of what the client is communicating. So you explore, you ask questions, you remain curious, and then you are saying, what does it mean for you? That's the integration of the client's words, the tone, the body language, the determination to say collectively what is happening, not in phases. Like very early on, somebody asked me saying, Sunil, you're looking at the right side of the Zoom call. Are you thinking of the past? And I was like, sorry, come back again. What does it mean for you? So somebody had told them if you look straight dead center, that means they're active, conversing with you. They're looking at the left side, something else, and right side, something else. And I said, no, I'm sitting in a posture where my default aspect is looking at what's happening on the outside window. And that's why I'm looking at that side of the thing. It's got nothing to do with the past, nothing to do with the present, nothing to do with the future. So just because you're observing a pattern does not mean that you go back and say how this is exactly why it's happening. And that's why you need to maintain neutrality here. Every coaching session is different. And with the same client, each coaching session is different. And with different clients, obviously each session is different. And you also noticing the trends that is happening in the client's behavior and emotions across sessions to discern themes and patterns. Interesting is what is a theme and what is the pattern. So there's a differentiation factor there as to what is a theme is and what a pattern is. And now because we're actually sitting with these competencies and sitting with each word and saying, what does it mean? When you are coaching in the life, you don't sit and do this, as in like you don't do postmortem of, or am I doing great with competency one, competency two, competency six. So that's what the official segment is. What do we need to know is that the client has different contexts, different identities. We need to be aware of that. Again, cumulative understanding, not just singularly words, singularly tone, singularly body language. You observe, you notice, you share without judgment, you share without attachment, you share, uh, and sometimes you use your body as a messenger, as a message and share. Sometimes you also ask them to look at that body language shift, tonality shift, speed shift, um, the way they express themselves, the facial expression shifts. So everything is information or data. So interestingly, I think there is a difference between what is data, what is information, what is reflection, and what is insight. So I'll pause here in context with regards to what we started as listens actively versus active listening. And yeah, so any observations, anything you want to share, anything you want to ask? Yes, Sri.
So thank you very much, first of all, for sharing these insights. Sunil is always very useful. 606 theme and pattern. How do we differentiate?
So the theme could have multiple patterns. Say, for example, a theme could be around my fear of failure. And because of my fear of failure, there could be a different pattern for different segments. So my fear of failure can, during an exam, act differently. During a non-exam, act differently. My fear of failure in a relationship could be different. My fear of failure in something else could be different. So the theme is a larger aspect. Pattern could be something that you're able to see. Pattern is repeatable. The theme is a particular subject. And that's my understanding. Be different for different people, right?
So I had trouble getting your voice clear. So I just wanted to paraphrase. So fear is the theme. Fear is something that is there as a larger, broader thing, and
Yeah.
pattern is the way you approach that fear. It could be a fear of exam, fear of failure, of fear of accident, fear of flying in my case.
Yeah, fear of saying this. So, so many other fears. So, fear is one theme. I mean, it could be the pattern, could be found.
Manifests different
Yeah.
patterns. Okay,
So, the
great. Thank you.
pattern is observable segments. Right? The theme could be abstract, for all that we know.
So over, if you are having multiple sessions, we could observe a theme, and then if it manifests in different patterns, we can always ask a question as to, I observe this.
Mhm.
What do you have to say? I
Yeah,
mean, the
yeah.
client can always say your observation is wrong, as long as I'm not asking him a close-ended question.
Again, you ask with permission, but then I think, yeah, you can ask that question based on your observation, again, based on different things that you're sharing. So, a few of the sessions, I think, if you've done peer coaching with me, one of the observations I would have shared is I'm sensing a lot of shoots, and I'm hearing a lot of shoots there. And also, what's the conversation around should? So, what are you asking that should be done?
Oh, by the way,
So,
thanks for bringing that permission thing, because the moment we observe a pattern and reproduce, it becomes a behavioral thing. So client, it can land on the wrong foot. Thanks for bringing that permission thing.
Yes. So patterns could also be, theme could be how I handle relationships with somebody who is elder than me. Theme could be that there's a different pattern in terms of how that manifests when I'm working with a parent, and how it manifests when it comes to say my boss in an organization. So these are things that has a theme, but then manifest differently, so different patterns. Yeah. I also had Savita raise her hand. Savita and then Leila and then Payal. So Savita, your question answered, or you still?
No, it's I'm just going to go to very basic question here, Sunil, because for me the biggest challenge is to stay present there in that conversation. Okay, that's first thing, because as you said, there's a lot of chatter which keeps happening. So how do you overcome that? That's the first question. Second question is, whenever when the client is saying multiple things, I struggle with what to take, right? If they're talking about, because you can identify about a belief system, or talking about a fear, any one pattern. I struggle with which one to take, and then which do you proceed, because there's so much coming out. Like you said, sometimes the client expresses so much that you do not know where to take, how to take it, or what it go. Right. So I think I'm struggling at that part.
So I'll answer the second question first, which was to say, what happens when the client shares so much? There's so much that you're listening to, and that's the thing. Like, you listen to the feeling and not the fact, and not the storytelling. So can you absorb that space? And again, the core competency is the same for ACC, BCC, MCC, MCC++. So how you interpret the core competency at an ACC level, at a PCC level, at an MCC level, three entirely different tangents. So from initial segments, your first 10 hours as a coach, so possibly listening from a physical listening point, because that's a tuning in that you're doing to say, I'm going to listen, I'm not going to look at my phone, I'm not going to look at what's happening, I'm not going to look at my time. And a little more listening to say, I'm going to listen to what the client is sharing, which is in terms of the feeling, in terms of the metaphors, in terms of something else. So there's again a gradation level that you understand that, yeah, okay, there are different levels of listening. And so your definition also gets updated as a coach when you get there. And typically we say listen to the feelings more than the storytelling. So listen to the less of the facts, more of the feeling. But it's a phase that you go through. It's not everybody does not start with great levels of active listening. It's a skill that everybody understands to listen more actively. It's a skill that so it'll take time to settle down with that. And the first question was, what do we do? So the what could change from person to person. It could be pre-session, getting into some meditative state, breathing, XYZ. So you will know that you're not listening, come back to the present. So that's the way. So sometimes you're able to see feel the temperature of your leg when you're sitting down, like when you're on this thing. So suddenly that wakes you back to come back to present. I have my internal this thing. So when I know that there's a parallel chatter in my head, I just do this and then put it into. So for me, it's my mechanism to say, yes, that thought is over, it's not required in this session, we'll come back. So that's the compartmentalization is what we can call it. So you can find your own ways to say my chatter is not important right now. Then you go ahead with the session.
Understood. Thanks, Sunil. I know it'll take time, but it's okay. At least it's a start.
It's a start. It's a fantastic start. Yes. All right. Leila, over to you, and please go ahead.
Thank you, Sunil. We are almost at the end of the session. I have very small question. What is is always global listening work for the active listening to handle a session? Number one question. Number two is, which session is work better? Is it one-to-one or person-to-person and online? Online, I faces a bit difficulties. Maybe it is lacking of experiences. So sometimes body movement, all the face making, because sometimes network also having the trouble. So which one is the better one? It is person to person or is online? Online, I have some issue. The problem I faced. So these two questions.
So I think I'll answer again second question first. So if you ask me personally, for me, nothing changes between in-person meet and in online meet. So the observations, the learning, and everything is possibly 90% the same. That's the way it rolls. I also had like pretty good experience of working with them, working with people one-to-one. It gives us more data points in terms of listening, but online does not make it any less. So we still, like I have done about, right now, if you have to look at it, spent over 2,000 hours in coaching, like coaching, peer coaching, and everything else. So listening, you can tune in. It's a practice that you're able to do. So that can be something that you can absorb and observe and get better in terms of online. Um, Again, it's a separate topic in terms of sometimes do you listen better if your video is off? Sometimes do you listen better if your video is on? That's another thread altogether. But from my personal experience, I'd say nothing. Then you are going there to listen, whether you go there in person or you sit there virtually. Your mindset and your tuning in is the same. Some additional data points may come, which may or may not help you as a coach to work with that. But more data points in person. So that's it. And also, the conversation is sometimes people feel more safe because they are online, and therefore they're able to go deeper into who they are. In person, the constant judgment is both on from both sides. Like as simple as today, Sunil looks like there's oil on his hair. Today he looks too tired. So suddenly this fellow is wearing brown, brown. So there's some pattern on his this thing. There's a high distraction possibility in person, right? And there could be again, it depends perception wise, bias wise, all that considering. But both are same. I think both are the same. And the first question, can you come back, please?
Um, for applying the CC6, how global listening impacting on this session?
So if you ask me, I for the first time in my coaching career until now heard of what global listening is. Right? So I don't know what global listening is. I don't need to know what global listening is for me to be a listener. So what I call global listening, somebody calls active listening, somebody calls intuitive listening, somebody calls something else. And as long as in the way you're calling it, the way it is happening, the way it manifesting is, if it means that we're listening to the who of the client and what is being shared, I think that's the best. Whether we call it global listening, whether we call it active listening, whether we call it something else, that's a different ballgame. So therefore, your journey as a coach matters because your definition of what that is and your needs as a coach to get there matters, and to have a good mentor who will say, yes, Lela, this is good listening, this is actively good listening, this is excellent. So that phases that you are seeing in that space, you're somebody who you know for yourself, and you also know with the help of a mentor.
Okay, I got your point, and what I have learned that it depends on the clients and behavior pattern of in front of that person or coachee.
Right.
So depending on this, what type of listening we have to apply, that depending on the situation.
Yeah, and depends on the situation, and also it depends on what is our lens, right? So we go listening uh, fully intuitively and this thing. So it does not matter whether we're doing it in person, whether the client is coming from whatever age group or anything like that. Irrespective of their behaviors, we go with that intention, we go with that skill. So that's the point I'm trying to make.
Thank you, Sunil. Thank you very much.
All right. So I think with that we are good for today, unless anyone else has an additional question. If we do have, we can take one more very short question. If not, we can close. Right. So
Not a question, but an observation. I'm taking the 3F forward because I think it's good to know the various aspects of listening. But if you just react to what the client is saying in terms of what you said in the beginning, 3F, the fact, fiction, and the feelings, I think we can take, it'll help us take the conversation forward without any bias and all.
I think the fiction part is a little bit of a scary part because you are assuming that's fiction, so we'll have to play a little soft there. Play
Yeah,
with the
fiction
first,
part is when I said
facts and
that. Sorry, yeah.
no, play with the facts and the feelings first, and then go to the fictional side.
No, fiction from the client point of view. From when the client comes up with that's when we are challenged as a coach. How do you hold your attention? You know that it is a fiction. He is imagining things or something is being said that might be untrue. That's where our judgmental abilities
Yes,
question.
yes. I think that's the challenge. That's why I said go with first, not three. So don't go into the fictional part of it. Go with feeling, go with facts. The fiction part will be like especially in terms of working with fear, working with that. So nothing for the client is fiction. Everything then is fact. The whole aspect when we look at it from a aspect of is that real, is that imagined. Quite a lot of times the overwhelms part also is on the that side. Like we are imagine failures, imagine this thing, anticipatory segments. So that's what they come to you with saying a lot of the times there are conversations. So fiction is pretty much a part of it. But then the very point when we say fiction, we are somewhere invalidating the truth of the client. So we'll have to be a little careful about the word there.
No, I'm saying from the point of view of listening, the client might come up with fiction, but it should not be affecting us, our listening ability.
Correct.
Correct? Okay, and I'll leave you with one book that you can possibly look at. When you said you were looking, somebody said you're looking outside, so are you thinking? That's an NLP thing, you're supposed to be observing and then deciphering. But Malcolm Gladwell has burst that myth in his book, Talking to Strangers. It's a wonderful book on behavioral patterns.
Interesting. We should. I'm not putting it out there, but there are some conversations in terms of like a book club. I am not a big fan of it because I don't read any of the coaching books. So I've not read any of them. So, but yeah, I will talking to strangers. Malcolm Gladwell. I will check if I can get a copy.
Okay. Thanks
All
a
right.
lot. Thank you. As always, it was wonderful.
Yes.
Good to see my
All right.
flying mentor, Govind, also in the house.
Go and
Believe me, it's become a lot
meditation.
easier now. I'm now thinking of Govind every time I travel.